Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. It means so much to me that you're listening today. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me and my guest. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for checking this out. Be sure to listen to the end of every episode. That's where we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. Well, as you know, for the month of April, it is all about books, and we are featuring 5 amazingly different books that are all available for you to purchase. And I'm excited to interview these 5 authors who are all unique and diverse and passionate about encouraging kids in very different ways. I'm also excited to tell you about our spring giveaway for the month of April. I'm giving away 3 prize packs. Each prize pack has a devotional, a picture book, and a gift card to Chick-fil-A because we all love some chicken nuggets, right? Here's how you enter. Go to collidekidspodcast.com and subscribe to the monthly newsletter. There's a pop-up that comes up when you open the website, and you'll see it right there. And then leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast app for the Collide Kids podcast, and send me a screenshot so that I see where you left your review. And that's it. That's all you have to do to enter to win. And you could get one of these 3 prize packs for your family. It's going to be so fun. So that's how you can win one of these amazing prize packs for you and your family. I will share more about this on my social media, so head over to Facebook and Instagram at Collide Kids Pod, and you can learn more about it there. Well, speaking of reviews, here is a review left by Julie. She said, I really enjoy this podcast. Not only is it helpful for me as a Christian parent, but it's entertaining for the whole family. I especially enjoyed the Michael Pritchard episode. He had great tips for getting preteens into the Bible. Thank you so much, Julie, for saying that and for leaving a review. That was so kind of you. And yes, that Michael Pritchard episode was so good. That was episode 153. So if you haven't listened to that already, you want to go check that out. Michael has a podcast called Chicken and Waffles. It's so fun. So you need to check that out, especially if you have preteens. Well, I am really excited for you guys to meet our guest today. And actually, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've already met her. This is her second time on the show. I'm so delighted to have Dorina Lazo Gilmore Young. She is a writer, speaker, a former news reporter, and a foodie. Her children's book, Cora Cooks Pancit, received the Picture Book of the Year from the Asian Pacific American Librarians Association. Dorina is a self-proclaimed glory chaser who meets God as she runs trails through the mountains or near the ocean. I'm so excited for you guys to hear about Dorina's new book, and I think you're going to be so encouraged today by this conversation. So here is my interview with my friend, Dorina Gilmore Young. Dorina, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids podcast again.
Thank you, Christen. It's a joy to be back.
Yeah, I'm so glad to talk to you today. And you have a new book out. So will you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and about your new book.
Yes. So my name is Dorina. I am a children's book author. I have 5 children's picture books that are out in the world, and I also write books for adults. And I have 3 daughters. So I am a mama with kids who are in middle school and high school. I also teach writing at my daughter's high school. So I get to interface with kids all the time. It is so fun.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I am excited to talk to you about all of these things. But before we do that, because this is a show for kids, I always make my guests tell me a joke or something funny. So do you have a joke for us today?
Okay, so pickles are kind of a big deal at our house. We have to buy like 3 different jars every week because my kids like all different types of pickles. So here's my pickle joke.
Okay.
2 pickles fell out of a jar onto the floor. What did one say to the other?
Ooh, I don't know.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. I love that. I love that you guys love pickles. I love pickles too. And I don't understand people that don't like pickles.
It's sort of a thing. It's maybe a cult following.
Yeah, I think it is. We have to have a pickle conversation first. Tell me about the pickles at your house. What are the pickles that you guys like?
Oh gosh. So I think one of my girls like the bread and butter kind of sweet and tangy ones. And then we definitely like the dill pickles, which are a little bit more sour. We are also a family of runners. And so there's a thing about pickle juice that is a recovery tool for runners.
Really interesting. Okay, so my favorite kind of pickle, I like the bread and butter ones too. Those are my favorite, like to eat on. I actually eat them on chips. Do you eat them on chips?
Well, we also like the pickle chips.
Oh, well, that too. But I found a new kind that I'm sort of obsessed with. It's like sweet and spicy. I think it's Grillo's sweet and spicy. They're really good. They're my new favorite right now. So
I'll have to look for those.
I know. Yeah, definitely check those out. If they like the sweet ones, they might like those. If they like a little bit of spice. I don't like a lot of spice, but it's just right amount of heat. Anyway, who thought we were going to talk about pickles today? Okay, so let's talk about your book. It's called Kailani's Gift. And I love that this is a book about dance and about Filipino culture. Will you just share a little bit about this book and how you came up with the idea?
Yes. Well, I actually wrote this book years ago as a sequel to my first book called Cora Cooks Pancit. And I actually kind of reimagined it with now a new editor, new publisher. But at the heart of this story is a little girl who is wanting to dance like her older siblings. She's in a family with lots of siblings, and she wants to learn this traditional Filipino dance called the tining cling, which is jumping between bamboo poles. And really, it is a story about perseverance in trying something new and how we can bless others with our gifts and talents. And so we watch Kailani kind of go on this journey of learning, of persevering, of being not so good at something, and then kind of breaking through in the story so that she's able to share her gift of dancing with her grandparents at their 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. And I love that you said the word perseverance. Will you just talk a little bit about that? What does that word mean? And why is it important for us to learn about perseverance?
Yeah, perseverance is something that is a character quality that is so important, I think, for all of us, no matter what age we are. And really what it is about is being able to continue moving and doing something despite encountering difficulty. So when we persevere, say in a running race, since I'm a running coach, it means that even when we're tired, we put one foot in front of the other and we continue until we get to the finish line. And that's true in our lives too. Maybe it's in starting a new hobby. Maybe it's through doing our homework, or even, something that we are doing with our family that feels hard. I like to travel with my girls, and sometimes when we are traveling, we have to persevere through flight delays, or we have to carry our bag a long way, even little things like that where perseverance is required. And so what Kailani is learning in this book is that perseverance is half the battle. It's not that we can usually do something and be perfect at it from the start. Right. Practice is actually what makes something, perfected or to be better at it.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think that's really important to think about too, is that there's going to be things that we face that are hard, or there's going to be new things we want to learn. Like when I think of perseverance, I think about like learning a musical instrument. And when we hold that musical instrument for the first time, or when we touch it or whatever, we want to be really good at it right away. And that's not always the case, right? Like I remember when I started taking violin lessons when I was younger, and it sounded really bad for a really long time. But through that perseverance and taking lessons and practicing, I was able to, one, not only just realize that I could get better if I spent some time on it, but also it made me really appreciate the instrument and what other people went through to learn how to play it.
I think that's such a good example, whether it's like playing an instrument or maybe it's trying out a new sport. I was a dancer when I was a kid, so I went through lots of classes of jazz, ballet, and tap dancing. And I loved it. I could feel the music. And at the same time, it didn't mean that just when I was learning a new dance that I would be amazing at it. And I remember I had some teachers who really were kind of strict about making sure that we did the movements correctly and that we were in time with the music. And we would have to practice things kind of over and over again. One of our teachers would kind of pound out the rhythm with a stick on the ground so that we all could hear it. And at the same time, I learned through that process, even though I'm not a dancer today, I learned perseverance through that. And then the times when we actually got to perform our dances, when we would have recitals or whatever, just the joy of getting to share that with the audience and seeing the audience, whether it was parents or family or community members, kind of light up with the thing that we had practiced for so long.
Yes, I love that. That's so true. What is it about perseverance that applies to our faith? Like when we think about our relationship with God, how does perseverance relate to our faith? We'll be right back after this. You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
That's such a great question. I think really when it comes down to it, that we have to persevere in our faith as well. And what that looks like is it means we need to keep showing up in our relationship with God. We can do that through prayer. We can do that through reading the Bible, studying the Bible, and even being in community together. Those are ways that we connect with God, our Creator. But there are lots of things in our lives that would like to distract us from perseverance in that way. And so whether it's, social media or watching TV or even just being tired or feeling lazy, those are things that can pull us away from persevering in our faith and developing that strong bond with God. But I love that when we do continue to show up for those things, and even as an adult, I struggle with that. God meets us in such a personal way when we even take a step toward Him.
He really does. The good thing about God is that He is way more faithful and He's always consistent, even when we're not. So we could mess up and we could totally forget to do our quiet time or totally neglect going to church or praying for a few weeks. And God still is there with us, just as He was when we were close to Him. And so I love that about Him, that we can still do that and trust in Him. Okay, so you've written this book. Now tell me the name of the dance that Kailani is learning about.
It's a dance called the Tiningkling, and this is a traditional dance that is from the Philippines. And what happens in the dance is there's two people on the ground who are kind of clicking together these bamboo poles, and then the dancers dance in and out of the poles. So it does take some precision and some discipline to learn it. This is a dance actually that a lot of PE classes learned. I think it was like in the 90s. So there may be even parents listening who remember doing this dance in PE class here in the United States. And it is a dance that is kind of having a resurgence with a younger generation, that kids are learning it again, partly because it's hard and also because it expresses our culture, our Filipino culture.
Yes. And you are a Filipino American. So tell me about, did this book come from your experience? Did you learn this dance?
Actually, it didn't come necessarily from me growing up learning this dance. It is a fiction book. But because I know there are so many different Filipino American kids who have learned the dance, who have performed it, and I was really impacted by seeing this dance when I was younger, there was a group that actually brought in a little bit different style of music. It was kind of more like hip hop music, but it was using the traditional dance moves. And I thought, wouldn't it be so fun to write a book about the Tinninkling, which is this marriage of traditional dance, but also kind of putting your modern spin on it. And the kids in the book do that. So that's just a little hint of what's to come in Kailani's gift.
I love that. That's so cool. So as a writer, what is it about including things about your culture that is so important to you?
Well, you know what? We live in a country that is full of people from many different cultures and many different backgrounds. And so I wanted to write this book and even several of my other books so that it is representing the Filipino American culture. So it's teaching people about that culture because it is important for us to learn about God's people from all different lands, but also for readers who are Filipino American or who are mixed race, like my kids, to be able to see themselves in the pages of a book. And that is so powerful. I remember when I was really young, there weren't a lot of books that were about Filipino American kids or mixed race kids. And so that was something that was just kind of difficult for me. It was like, well, I see all these amazing examples of kids in books. I was a voracious reader when I was a kid. I loved reading all different types of books, but I didn't really have books that kind of resonated with my experience. And as our country continues to grow more in being diverse and having multiracial kids, that is so important for all of us to learn about that experience.
That is so true. We all need to be aware of just how different we all are. There's so many different things that are beautiful about another culture. So to learn about those things, I think is really exciting. And so I love that you've written a book about this. This is so fun. The other really interesting thing, and I think we touched on this a little bit before about this book, is about Kailani and just her struggle with not being good at something when she first started out. She really has to persevere and work through it. So is that an experience that you've ever had before where you haven't been good at something at the very beginning?
For sure. So many times in my life and even today as an adult. I mean, I talked a little bit about my dance experience, but I also used to play piano. So I played the piano for 9 years. You know, with the piano, you start at the basics, you learn things and you kind of build upon that. So anytime I would start a new book or a new song, it would feel so awkward and so clunky at the beginning. And I know Kailani feels like that in this book as well. In fact, her brother kind of makes fun of her because she's not great at the dance in the beginning and she's kind of the youngest of the siblings. So that's something that she has to work against, is sort of that negative voice that's in her head. I think that's something we all experience, especially when we're working on something new. And so some of the perseverance we have to have is getting back up when we fall, or moving forward even when someone or even just a voice in our head is telling us, well, you're not good enough, or you're not good at this, you're never going to get better. Some of those things that cause anxiety in us. And I love that, you know, Kailani is an example of pushing through those things. And that's definitely something I've experienced in my life too.
Yeah, me too. And one of those things I think always kind of bogs you down is not even maybe someone else telling you you're not good enough, but like you said, that voice in our head that tells us you're not going to be good at this. And so we have to really put that aside and just focus on what's true, and that it's okay to not be good at something. It's okay if you mess up. It's okay if you make mistakes. I wonder why we're so afraid to make mistakes. Like, why do you think we're like that?
Well, I think one of the reasons why is because we often are looking at other people who have been practicing for a long time, who have been putting in that perseverance, but we're seeing them kind of down the line in their journey, or even when they're in a successful state, winning an award or on a stage, and we're comparing ourselves to them when we're at a different stage of that journey. And so with that comparison, then we may be down on ourselves without realizing, well, that's not what they looked like when they started out with that hobby or with that challenge. I think the other thing is social media. We get to see each other all the time through Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all these different ways. And so it's easy to get caught into a cycle of comparison because we're seeing these sort of highlight reels. We're seeing somebody when they have like their best outfit on, or when there's a video of them performing, and we're not seeing the pictures of them when they're persevering through the hard days, or when they are really under the hot sun on a practice day. And I think that's one of the things that can give us sort of a different view or a skewed view.
Mm-hmm. And I think to what you said also, when we are those people that are succeeding or further along in our journey than someone else, it's so important that we speak words of encouragement to the people around us, because you never know what they might be facing or what they might be trying to get to. And so by speaking life, by speaking words that are encouraging, we're really going to help those people around us. So that's so good. I'm glad you brought that up. Well, I'm really excited about your book, Dorina. I think this is going to make such an impact. And just as people think about perseverance and kids are learning more about this virtue, I think it's going to be great. I'm so excited for people to get a hold of your book. And it just came out, right? This episode is coming out in April. So it comes out in April.
Yes, it just launched into the world. And even this book coming out is an example of perseverance. As I mentioned before, I wrote this book 10 years ago. And so that's almost a decade of time that it was rejected, that I did not find a home for it. And so just even the fact that this little book baby is going out into the world here in 2024, for me, is just an example of how God can sometimes take things that feel like a failure, and in His timing, He can bring it into a place where He can use it for His glory.
Yes, that's so cool. And that really is a story of perseverance, that the book has taken 10 years. So that's just God showing you, like, I need you to learn something from this as well.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for sharing today. Will you let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and where they can order this book?
Yes. The easiest way to find me is to hop over to my website, DorinaGilmore.com. I have tons of links there where people can find me on social media. They can order the book. They can see some of the other books that I've written. And I have a lot of great resources there for parents and teachers if they want to use some of my children's books in their learning environments or even in their homes.
Yes, definitely go check out her resources and all the books and things that she has. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Before I let you go, I always ask my guests to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. So what do you want to share with us today?
Well, one of my favorite memories growing up was being in the kitchen with my mom and my grandmas and my aunties, and we would cook all kinds of food. My family is a mix of Italian and Filipino, and you can even see some of the Filipino foods on the back of Kailani's gift. My illustrator did a great job of showing like the lumpia, which is egg rolls, and pancit, which is a noodle dish, and even adobo chicken, which is in the pot. And I loved being in the kitchen because that was a place where all the stories were happening. And so I got to learn about my family history. I got to know the women in my family, especially through being in the kitchen together. And I just savor those memories.
That is beautiful. And that makes me hungry to hear about all that delicious food. That's so, I'm ready for lunch. All right. Well, Dorina, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was great seeing you again. And I'm so excited for your book.
Christen, thanks for welcoming me. And I love what you're doing through the podcast.
Wow, wasn't that so fun? I think it's so interesting that it took 10 years for this book to come out. What a great example of perseverance. This book, Kailani's Gift, is all about trying something new and blessing others with our gifts. We talked a lot today about perseverance, and especially perseverance in our faith. And Dorina said it's just by continuing to show up, connecting with God in prayer, studying the Bible, being in community with other believers. Those are lots of things that you can do. And keep in mind the things in your life that can distract you and pull you away from developing a strong relationship with God. She also shared that it's so important for people to see a character or a story that relates to their own culture. So I love that she has written something for us to learn about another culture and for Filipino American kids to see themselves in a book and relate to it. Dorina also really encouraged us to get past the voice in our head. We need to get back up, keep moving forward, and remember, it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to not be good at something at the very beginning. That's what Kailani's gift is all about. Kailani learning to push through those fears and the voice in her head that told her she couldn't do it, and she learned to persevere. If you'd like to learn more about this book or order a copy for yourself, you can get it wherever books are sold. You can also head over to Dorina's website, dorinagilmore.com, and be sure to learn more about her other books that she has. She has so many great books that you definitely want to check out. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So here is my friend, Rowan.
Why was the skeleton lonely? Because he had no body to play with.
He had no body to play with. Oh, I like that one. That's a good one. Thank you, Rowan. Thanks for sharing your joke. Hey, if you'd like to be like Rowan and share your favorite joke or a quote that you like from a book or a movie, or maybe you have a Bible verse that you've memorized and you want to share with us, just go to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, and click the tab at the top that says Kids Only, and you can record it right there. It's really easy to do. Or you can find information about how to send it to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod, and I would love for you to follow me there. There's also a few other ways you can support the podcast. You can do that by following and subscribing to this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using, and leave a rating and a review. When you do that, it really does help people find out about the show. And this month, it enters you to win one of the prize packs. So it's a win-win. You can also share this episode with friends and family and let them know why you and your family like to listen. Or you can go by my website and click the link that says support. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, as always, I am incredibly grateful that you have listened to today's episode, and I hope you have been encouraged to persevere and to keep going no matter what age you are. We can always grow and learn and choose to never give up. In case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.